Hello everyone, welcome to Chinatown Gang Stories. Today I have a short story to share with you about the Flying Dragons. We're going to talk about the leader of the Flying Dragons, Onion Head, and his underling, aka Joe Lai. As some of you know, Onion Head, Johnny Eng, is also known as Machine Gun Johnny, and he was a major heroin dealer back in those days, in the 1980s. So what I'm going to talk about today is Joe Lai and why he was killed. Joe Lai had an older brother named Yogi, and these two guys were under Onion Head. They were his street soldiers. Joe wanted to make a name for himself as being a tough guy. Back in those days, whether you're a gangster or not, if you came across Joe, more than likely you're going to have an incident with him. And generally, tough guys don't last too long in Chinatown because back in those days, witnesses were reluctant to come forward. And also, there weren't cameras around and no cell phone. The technology wasn't there, so it's very difficult to get a conviction on a murder case, which is why there's so many cold cases in Chinatown. So what's the story behind Joe's murder and what happened to him? And this is what I got over the years based on my interviews. The year was 1987, September 20th, on a Friday night, 10:50 p.m. Joe was sitting behind the wheel of his vehicle with his 15-year-old Korean girlfriend in the passenger seat, waiting for the light at the intersection of Division Street and Bowery Street, when a gunman approached the vehicle and fired several shots into the car, killing Joe. So, what's the backstory behind it? Why did Joe get killed? What happened was, one day Joe was walking the streets of Chinatown and he needed to make a phone call. Back in those days, there were no cell phones. There were phone booths, public phones, where you put a coin in there, you make a phone call. Well, he approached one phone booth and saw somebody talking on the phone. He told the person to get out. He needed to use the phone. Words were exchanged between him and that person. And what happened was he grabbed the person by the collar, dragged him out of the phone booth, and slapped him in the face. Not knowing that this person was a high-ranking member of the Big Circle Triad, who came from Southeast Asia to meet with Onion Head to do business in the heroin trade. Well, this guy didn't say anything because Joe was a 19-year-old kid in good physical shape, and he knew he couldn't take on Joe physically, so he walked away from it. Without telling Joe who he was. He didn't go, "Do you know who I am?" He didn't pull one of those things. He just walked away. And these Triad members, they don't dress flamboyantly. They're not flashy. They don't show off like how the Chinatown gangsters were back in those days. They don't dress in the gangster attire like those guys. So he was very low profile. Joe didn't know he was messing with a guy who was a high-ranking member of the Triad, and he never identified himself as one either. So his point of contact here was Onion Head. He went to find Onion Head and had Onion Head find out who this kid was. And to Onion Head's surprise, he found out that it was one of his own, one of his street soldiers. So Onion Head in turn called Yogi to notify Joe to come to a meeting. In the Asian underworld, when you have a meeting and you have to apologize to somebody, it usually comes in the form of a banquet with tea offering and a red envelope. So what happened is, Onion Head set up the whole thing, but Joe didn't show up. So that was a slap in the face to all of them. Triad member goes to Onion Head, "You can't even control your own underling?" That made Onion Head lose a lot of face. Onionhead wanted to apologize on behalf of Joe to straighten things out, but the Triad member wouldn't have any of it. So that's what led to Joe's demise. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think the Triad member had anything to do with the Joe Lai's murder? Thank you for following this channel. If you're enjoying these stories, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Thank you again, and please comment in the comment section below. I'd like to hear from you. Thank you. Bye-bye.